So I'm doing this for the second time because my stupid battery died on my camera, and instead of having a random little cut after after for the last 5 minutes, I figured I'll just do the whole thing over because I'd rather, like I said, I'd rather just have it all in one go than have a weird edit for 2 or 3 more minutes because I was basically finished. But this is the subject: Arrow Supernatural season finale. I just finished watching them, and obviously both were fantastic. I'm gonna pretty much go through the whole episode of each, favorite points, least favorite points, and they don't really have, you know, like I said, least favorite points, not points I didn't like, so just least favorite. But starting off with Arrow, it was a great season finale episode. It had all the great action from the rest of the season. It had great dialogue. It had all the great scenes plus all the extra drama that the rest of the episodes built up to. Now, starting off after Oliver gets beat by Merlin and captured, I like this scene where Merlin's talking to Oliver, and he's basically he lets him live, which obviously he'd kind of have to let him live. He couldn't just start off and he just murders him, but he lets him live, and you have to assume it's because of their connection. They are kind of like family. Oliver is Tommy's best friend. So for now, but they were like best friends growing up and stuff, and so they are kind of like family. And I think that's why he let him live. Like at the end of the last week's episode, when he finds out, when Merlin finds out that Oliver is Green Arrow, he says, "Oh no," and it's not just like, "Oh well," and then he kills him or anything. He's kind of hurt by that because they know each other and they have a pretty serious connection, even if it's distant now after Oliver's been lost at sea for 5 years and he comes back and stuff. But he tells him like, "I'm gonna do this and you can't stop it no matter what." And he leaves out, and Oliver, he climbs up the chains, which I thought was a really cool way to do that. And like I couldn't possibly pull that off. I was like, that's insane. He pulls up. I thought he was gonna go up, and I was like, I thought he just got tired. That's why he stopped, and then he lets go and just breaks the whole thing. I was like, well, that was pretty sweet. And like the guy comes down the stairs, and he kind of just does that and hits him with the chains, and he just falls down the steps. I thought that was pretty funny actually. And then he classic Arrow. He beats up the other guys. When he snapped the guy's neck on the stairs, I thought that was pretty intense because he was like already down, and he went over to him and like snapped his neck, and I was like, crap, that's pretty serious. But he killed him. He like got the guy who came in. He got him, like got the gun out of his hand or whatever. And then the third guy, Diggle comes in and kills him. And he's like, I take back every joke I ever made about you putting the tracking device in your boot, which is just smart on Oliver's part. But after that, they go basically figure out where the device is and how to stop it. What I enjoyed were some of the twists in the episode, like Moira, if I'm remembering Oliver's mother right, her name right. When she does the conference, I thought that was a pretty good scene. I didn't see that coming, that she'd you know announce everything that happened. But after Oliver talks to her and he says, he tells her his dad actually killed himself and that he didn't die on the boat, and that he doesn't want his mother to he doesn't want to live on knowing that his mother let thousands of people die in his sister's name, which was really good. And after all that, she was like, okay, I'm gonna do this conference. He didn't know about, no one knew about it, but she does the conference and exposes herself and Merlin, and says like he killed these people. And I honestly thought during the scene, before she actually said his name, I thought it was gonna be like she got killed or she'd be shot because he'd have somebody there, which I guess wouldn't make any sense unless he just heard about it through the grapevine like really quickly, which I guess he could if you think about it, because he could have tabs on every single person. But I was glad that she didn't get shot, and it was just the simple scene. She exposed him for who he was, and he got really mad when he slammed it down and like punched the table. I was like, holy crap, that was he was like really pissed. But that was a good scene. She basically she gave up herself, and she's gonna be in jail for the next season. So that's gonna be interesting to see how that goes. And before that, when Merlin and Tommy are talking to each other, and he has the phone and the little device. I thought it was weird that he had it, but I guess it was like, this is the last message he had um, from his wife, and I guess he just kept that phone in the whatever the little cup thing. I know I said little twice, but the little cup thing. And, he played it for Tommy, and it was like super emotional. I thought that was a really good scene. He's hearing the message, and it played for about like 5 or 10 seconds, and like Merlin knew it, word for word, and Tommy was just like, turn it off because he didn't want to hear that because that was a pretty emotional thing. And if you saw it, it was actually like 4.5 minutes long, which I thought was like really interesting. I thought they were actually gonna play the whole thing, but they didn't. And so after Merlin stops it, Tommy asks him like, "So you're gonna just let all the other people die?" And he yelled, like, before he even finished, he yelled at him, and Tommy jumped, and he says, "Yes, I'm gonna let them die because they deserve to die like she did." And you just saw it in his face. I mean, obviously he yelled at his own son. Like, it was really calm, like he always is in pretty much every episode. He'll be like that calm villain who's super angry and stuff, but he speaks in a really calm way. He lets you know this is what's gonna happen, and that's pretty much it. But that was really serious because that was his wife, and he loved her, and it basically drove him insane. It pretty much made him a villain. His wife died. She was murdered in a bad part of town, and he wants to destroy that bad part of town. And it was really interesting, when he admitted to Tommy after he confronted him, like, Oliver said you were gonna do this, and he said it was true. I thought it was interesting how they brought back his mother's clinic because I'd actually completely forgotten about that. And he mentioned, like, that's why I closed down your mother's clinic because I didn't want to see it leveled. And I thought that was a really cool thing because, like I said, I completely forgot about the clinic because they hadn't mentioned it for a long time, like since like the first couple of episodes when they really had their first like interaction, on screen. They hadn't really mentioned it, and I thought, that was a cool way for him to justify closing it down because he had this plan, for years, obviously, before Oliver and his dad even went on the trip. He had that plan in motion, which you obviously saw in the last episode, and it was just a really cool way to justify that to me because he's like, the one thing that actually mattered to him, he shut it down years and years in advance because he knew what he was going to do in the future. But after they do all that and he's exposed and Oliver and Diggle go after him, the little fight scene that they have I thought was great. And I knew from the promo that Oliver and Merlin were gonna fight alone in the end. I was kind of curious because I figured when I was watching the episode, I thought, okay, I know they fight one on one in the end. So when they were having the conversation where Diggle and Oliver were talking about going to disarm the bomb, I figured, okay, he actually did convince him to go to the subway and defuse the bomb. And then, he didn't, and they were both gonna go fight. And I thought, well, is he really this tough? And like, he beat them both up, and he was. And it wasn't like I thought, because I thought, well, Diggle's gonna have a gun. How are they gonna do that? And I thought it was really good how they did do it, because he was hiding in his like little safe area with all his weapons and stuff. And so, like, once he went behind the little corner and Diggle went after him, I was like, okay, I know for sure this is how he's gonna beat him. And he disarms Diggle, and after that he's just like blocking this side, punch that side, block, punch, and he takes them both down. Well, he basically holds them off, and then he takes Diggle down when he throws the like dagger at him. And if I saw right, he got him in the leg too, and I'm assuming that was like when they were fighting, and I completely missed that because they were moving back and forth, like the camera was kind of switching, and it was like, he hits him, he hits Diggle, he hits Oliver, he blocks here and kicks there, stuff like that, because it was moving. If you saw the episode, so it was moving back and forth pretty fast. That's kind of how I missed. I was like, I enjoyed the scene. I got the gist of it because he was pretty much beating them both up. It was like Oliver would go down, then it would switch, and Merlin would block, and then Diggle would like get punched up against the wall, then would go back, and he'd knock Oliver down again. And it went through that for, it was probably only like 30 seconds or less, really. But he did that. And it was a cool scene in the like a little enclosed area, like CQC, which is close quarters combat if you don't know. And so they were really close knit, and he took Diggle down and he took off, and Oliver went after him. And the fight they had was really cool. I enjoyed that. And it had the basic, it had the action from the rest of the series. It was really cool. They had cool moves, and like the part where Oliver, I think he like got Merlin off of him, and he rolled, and he was about to pull on him, and he let it go, and Merlin just caught it again. I was like, what the heck? He's just like catching every arrow he shoots at him, and I thought that was crazy. He was just like catching arrows and just like nothing, and he just tosses it down. And the fight, and I thought, like, crap, he's insanely powerful, for an enemy. And it was weird because I just saw like a rerun of Mythbusters yesterday. Like it was just randomly on. I was like, sure, it was the ninja one, and it was like catching arrows, talking about like you couldn't catch an arrow, like it's impossible for a human to catch an arrow, and I just thought it was like super funny. So, like it made it funny to me, but when I was actually just like right when it happened, it was just like, that's freaking, come on, why is he just catching all these arrows? But it was a great action scene. And like I love the fight. I love how it ended and how Oliver like stabbed through himself to get Merlin. When I was watching it though, I was like, couldn't he have just like stabbed him in the face though? And I guess that would have been a bit too much for CW. And also, I guess it would have been different if he did that, like, cause when Tommy goes to save Laurel in the end of the episode, and Oliver tells him he didn't kill his father, which he did. Unless he really just passed out with his eyes open, he's dead. So, like, I'm almost 100% sure he's dead, and he didn't just, like, pass out, because, Oliver hit himself about right here, and it was kind of like that, so it went right into his heart. Or at least it kind of cut it, or it was close enough, because he was obviously able to talk for a little bit after. But, the end of the episode when Tommy and Oliver are talking, he says like he didn't kill his father, and I guess he told him that because he knew that's kind of what he needed to hear because it was his last moment. And the scene where Oliver does die was actually a pretty big twist to me because through the whole episode, I like at first I wasn't thinking anyone would really die. They'd have their whole thing, and I guess maybe Merlin, but I didn't even really think he'd die, even though, Merlin, in the promo, Merlin asked Oliver if he's ready to die. I didn't think Oliver would even kill him. But, they go through the episode, they have their parts, and like when Oliver's talking to Laurel before he actually goes, and it was an emotional scene, and I liked how it was shot, like when they kissed, like they had the whole sunlight thing coming down. It was kind of like the scenes in other things when they're outside, because it just looked that bright to me, like sort of the sunset type of view, and I thought that looked pretty cool. But the scene itself, I guess it wasn't as impactful because I knew, like as a viewer, odds are who's gonna die and who's not when it comes to main characters, especially when he is, it's called Arrow because he is Green Arrow, so obviously I knew he wasn't gonna die. So I think that threw it off a little, because I was like, in the like watching the scene, I enjoyed it, but in the back of my mind, it was like it's not really that big of a deal to me. Like they're having a little emotional debacle, well, not even a debacle, but they're just talking about their emotions, and he's just like worried he's gonna die, and I understood it, of course, because he didn't know. But like I said, in the back of my head, I guess it was just like I don't really see the point of this scene because obviously he's just gonna like whoop butt and win in the end, and that's pretty much how it went almost. But I did enjoy the scene. Like I said, I enjoyed it for what it was, and I enjoyed like the little shot. And going through the episode when Laurel's dad got pulled into it to defuse the device at the end, I thought that he would die because he caught her and he was really like, I am gonna die, and obviously he's not as important as Green Arrow himself, and I really thought he would because it the timer went down. Even though he had 2 minutes, I still thought it probably will happen, and he could end up dying. He's trying to tell his daughter to escape because he wants her to live, of course. And I thought he might actually die. I really thought he would die, but he survived. And then they have the twist, and Laurel's caught in the building, and then Tommy goes to save her, and he ends up dying. He gets punctured, and I figured that's what would happen when, even though he was under all the rubble, like he was talking and stuff. I knew he wasn't crushed, but I was like, he's probably still not gonna make it. It's always an impalement when people are under rubble and the person can lift all the rubble off. Generally, after that, it's still pretty bad. And I was right; he was impaled, and that scene was really good to me. That's probably my favorite, like, emotional scene. I guess it was both the scenes with Tommy and him talking with Merlin in the beginning with the message on the phone, which was a fantastic scene. If you saw, that was actually like 4.5 minutes, the whole message, and they didn't play it, but I still really enjoyed it. But like, that scene was really good, and it was emotional. And then the ending scene, with Tommy and Oliver, discussing, or well, not discussing, but Tommy and Oliver just together, and Oliver's talking to him after he dies. He's like crying and stuff because obviously his best friend died in front of his eyes, and he's crying and he's just like, open your eyes and stuff. And I thought that was a really great scene. I thought, of course, I thought that was actually better than the scene with Tommy and his dad. And I'm already forgetting if I talked about it like in full detail because like when I did this video the first time. But just in case I didn't, like, I really enjoyed that scene because it was just an emotional, scene, and like they played it for like 20 seconds, or not even 20 seconds. The little file played for like maybe 10 seconds or 15, and Tommy didn't even want to hear it. And I really enjoyed, like, his dad knew the line, pretty much verbatim. He knew the whole message because obviously it was years. But like, I thought that was a really good scene. And then like I said, the ending was fantastic. And and after that, when they had Laurel and her dad and her friend outside, I like that it ended without a actual resolution. At first it seemed, everything seemed simple. They solved the problem, and then they find out that the device that there are actually two devices. And I enjoyed the scene the line Merlin said when he's like, as a businessman, one thing I've learned is redundancy. I thought that was a pretty cool line. But the second device goes off, everything's being destroyed, and how they how it ends, they pan back and then they show the glades being destroyed. There's like a helicopter flying over, and everything's just crumbling all over the place, and it just it's done, and there's no actual resolution. And I thought that was pretty cool, like how they ended that. And now, as far as the past sections go, which I thought were really good in this episode, I think they're good generally, but I liked how they did it. It was more than the normal episode. It seemed like you'd have 5 minutes in the present, and then you'd have the exact, the same amount of time in the past. That's how it felt to me. Instead of, you have like 15 minutes in the present, and then you get like a minute and a half long scene, or like 2 or 3 minutes in the past. This episode wasn't really about, here's the lesson Oliver learned in this episode that relates to the present story. This was, here's the present story climax. This is how it's solved, and then this is what happened in the past, which, when it ended, I really thought, like, I don't know what they're gonna do for season 2 and on, but that wasn't, that obviously wasn't all 5 years, and it couldn't have been even a year. It was probably, I say it could have been like 8 or 9 months. But unless it was all 5 years and somehow I missed a ton of dialogue, that wasn't even one whole year yet. And I really enjoyed how they did it. They attacked the people in the beginning. They just beat everybody up, and they were able to stop the missile, and it crashed down in the camp. And actually, when I saw that scene, I thought Slade might have died because he was still in the camp. And there was, I mean, obviously a missile comes down, that's a pretty big explosion. But he survived and Shadow survived. And I also, that was like the first time I actually realized her name was Shadow. I guess I just wasn't paying attention the other times. But yeah, that's her name. But she got captured by the guy, and they showed Oliver, do his first shot, and he hit him right through the neck, and he killed him. And that was a pretty cool scene. How they brought it together, and it was after, it was like before, if I remember right, it was like right before he went to fight Merlin, and they showed him like with the bow that he got on the island, and so I thought that was pretty cool. And then he did his first kill. But one thing I thought was weird was after the missile came down, when they went back to the past after they did the present scene in between the two parts, it was like nighttime. Like it was clearly day when the missile hit, and then it was nighttime. So it was like it couldn't have just been like 45 minutes. Even if it was just 45 minutes, I feel like that was an odd amount of time for him not to have found like either of them. And like I said, I was glad Slade survived, but at the same time, it was like they weren't in like acres on like acres and acres of land. They were, you know, um, Oliver and Shadow. They were on the missile launcher. I mean, they went a little bit, but obviously he could clearly see the missile drop down on the camp. So he was like right there, and it made me wonder like. I'm sure some stuff happened. It could have easily been like more people survived. So Slade was fighting them, and Oliver was doing the same thing. They all three of them were separated, but at the same time, it was such a. It couldn't have been that huge, where it went from like as bright as it was to so dark, like almost pitch black at night when they finally found each other. I just thought that was a weird part, but I still loved every minute, of the past scene and of the present. And I'm really curious because, like I said, that wasn't all 5 years, of course. And if I remember it, he does mention that he got off the island at some point, but he obviously went back because he was found on the island. So I'm curious to see, what they're gonna do next because now that they've pretty much solved their big problem and killed the like main villain, so to speak. Do are they gonna deal with his boss? So I guess he'd kind of be more like a sub villain. But are they gonna deal with the main villain who would be his boss? Which odds are it'll probably be like some sort of corporation that just seems to be the thing, so you can have multiple villains. But even if it's one person or multiple people, maybe they'll come to the island, or maybe they'll send better people. Um, maybe Deathstroke will come back. Maybe he wasn't even on the island because if you remember from like the very first episode, they have his mask on the island. Although they call us, I know Deathstroke's name was Slade, so I mean, obviously they can take artistic licenses and switch stuff up, just like how they do with Oliver's sister and then Roy, because he calls his sister Speedy, and so Roy will probably be like Red Arrow from the start. But how they have that, maybe Deathstroke will come back, and who knows? Because you don't really know if Slade and Shadow actually do survive, and they might, and they could be off. They could be in China. They could be anywhere on the planet. You don't really know. It's 5 whole years, but you kind of have to wonder what happened. To keep him on the island for 5 years after he flat out said, he left the island at some point. And I wish I could remember the exact line and episode, so I could be like just thinking of it wrong, but I do kind of remember him saying like he left the island or it was something that he learned. I think that's what it was. It was that he, like Diggle mentioned, he learned something, and he was like, I didn't learn that on the island, and that's when I knew like, oh, he got off the island at some point, but the first episode it showed he was on the island. So I'm really curious to see what they do with that and how whatever situation he dealt with in the past is going to relate to what they have in the present. And along with the present, I'm really curious about Roy and how he's going to turn into Red Arrow or Speedy. But like I said, I think it's going to be Red Arrow because in this he calls his sister Speedy. So if he called her Speedy and then Roy was Speedy too, I think that would just seem a little weird. And so I'm assuming he'll just end up as Red Arrow. And something I thought of, which they could do, because like I said, artistic licenses. Um, I wish I could remember her name, but I'm just gonna call her Speedy. Maybe she will be a part of the team, and they'll find a way to make it work. It'll be like you know Oliver by himself this time next season. Maybe halfway through or something, he'll find Roy will find him and he'll teach him and he'll become Red Arrow. And maybe season 3 or 4, Speedy finds out and then she joins as Speedy, and they kind of work with it like that. And what made me think that mostly was the line um, after Roy like fights the 3 guys, which I thought was a really cool scene because he beat up 2 of the guys, and also he when the guy was choking him, he did like the flip where he like lifted his legs up and then he flipped the guy over using his weight. I don't think that's a general thought process for most people when they're being choked. Like I don't know how many of you are just like I'm gonna lift my legs and use my whole body to flip over. But like once he did it, because I've thought of that a bunch of times, like because I think I saw it once and I was like, okay, I'm gonna remember that if I ever get choked. And he got choked, and like as soon as he did that and he flipped over, and I thought that was that's probably not something most people would think of. And it was really cool just to see because you don't see that too often when people are getting choked and they just flip somebody. You generally see that in like martial arts movies. But he did that, and it was just like that was the first thing in his head was to use his weight and flip the guy over, and he took out 2 guys, and I thought it was really cool, and it showed he's running from his home, because it's being destroyed, and he sees a guy getting beat up, and he goes to help him, and it just it showed more like that scene and the scene with the bus. They each show you know even more than the other episodes. Excuse me. He really does care about being a hero now after Oliver saved his life. Excuse me. And what I was bringing up with the Speedy thing is that when she hit the guy in the head with the bottle and he said how do you, and Roy asked her how she did it, she mentioned like I guess I have really good aim. That's what made me think that she'd end up being Speedy, like the actual Speedy, and Roy would still join as Red Arrow. But like I don't really know, obviously, and it could end up that Roy doesn't even join as Red Arrow, and Oliver and his sister end up as a team, and maybe she finds out, or maybe Roy finds out about Speedy, and then he joins in later. I don't know, but odds are it's probably going to be him as Red Arrow first, and then Speedy will join as Speedy if they even do that. But I really enjoyed that scene, and like I said, the scene with the bus. They're actually escaping in town now, and he stops the car. Well, I mean, he's about to crash, but after he stops and the guy says help, he just gets out of the truck and he tries to help people on the bus, and he tells her to run off or to get out of town, and he'll meet her outside of the town, and he just goes off to help more people, and I thought that's a really good scene. And before that, when they're driving and he's texting, I thought that was like a weird PSA thing, and it kind of was. If you like saw the commercial right after, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense now, because I thought it was really funny. And she's like, don't you know texting and driving is bad? You can wait or whatever. It's like I'll do it. It's not worth the risk. And I was like, that was really silly. I thought that was just really funny. And then the commercial came on. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense now. But you know, like the whole thing, the whole episode, I really loved it. I cannot wait for season 2. I'm really curious who the villain could be in season 2, because Merlin is dead unless he passed out with his eyes open, which I doubt. Like I said, he's done. So Murray's in prison, Merlin's dead. Maybe there are people outside of the city who are still involved with them, or something like that. But I don't know. Whoever they come up with, I'm sure it'll be a cool character. And like I said, I can't. I think I'm more excited for the past stuff because it was 5 years, and especially him mentioning getting off the island. But I'm excited for all of it in general, and I cannot wait for the fall so I can like watch season 2. So now on to the Supernatural season finale. Currently, Supernatural is like my favorite show on TV, and this season it was great. I loved it. I loved it like I loved every season. Like a lot of people, I didn't know this until recently because I was looking up some stuff for Supernatural. But a lot of people have problems with the Leviathan season. Personally, I thought it was like still a really good season. I don't know. I don't know. I guess people just didn't like it as much because it was kind of the political thing when Dick Roman like trying to take over the planet, the way he was. But from that season leading up to this one, it was just like all fantastic. It started off, like every season finale does with "Carry On My Wayward Son." Love that song. It really fits. And it shows everything, shows the past, all that stuff, and it was great. It starts off pretty simple, and well, I guess I can't really say it starts off simple, but I really enjoyed like when they brought the woman back. I can't think of her name for the show, and I don't know the actress's actual name, but the cop who Bobby used to know. Like as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, I remember her, and it also helped that I like recently saw a rerun with her in it. But it started off with Crowley, about to kill her. Like at first, when she was by herself and he showed up because he got her the drink, my first thought was that she knew him from the past because he acted like somebody. Just because he's Crowley, so he's always doing some crazy thing. The first thing I thought was she knew him in the past as whatever she called. I want to say she did call him Roy, but I'm sure that's just from Arrow. But it might have been like Roger or something like that. I'm pretty sure it had an R. But the first thought in my head was, oh, he faked like he was somebody else, and they're just meeting up after a long time or something, and he was gonna kill her. But they did the whole online dating thing. He had the hex bag and he was gonna kill her, and Sam and Dean, they basically, well, they said they were giving in, and he met up with them, and I enjoyed the scene when they met up, and if I remember right, that was Bobby's house because they were in the back, in the junkyard. I'm almost 100% sure. Like for some reason, I actually remember, and I could be wrong once again because I don't know. Like I love this show, but I don't like just rewatch every episode and remember everything for the show. I wish I could, but I just don't. But I'm pretty sure Sioux Falls is where Bobby's house is. And plus, like I said, they were in the back. All the cars were messed up and stuff. I assumed that was Bobby's house. But when they met up with Crowley and they had the deal and stuff, and he like wrote out this super long contract, which I thought was hilarious because I was like, that's like classic demon stuff, and he just like rolls out like a mile long contract. Obviously, it wasn't a mile. It was still super long. There was a scroll just on contract. And like when Dean was reading it, I just thought it was really funny. And he's like, "Are you gonna like move your lips the whole time you're walking up here?" And so he's like reading and getting closer, and then he looks at Sam, and Sam does that. And when Sam nodded, I honestly thought that Crowley would have seen it. I thought it was gonna be like he'd know that something was up and they'd get him anyway, but he like wasn't even paying attention. And I thought it was kind of weird that Dean would even bother to like look over, because I figured he did because they were both gonna do something, and then it was just like he slapped the handcuffs on him, and that was actually it. So I thought it was weird that he'd have to look at Dean, like to ask, like, "Are you ready?" And then all he's doing is slapping the handcuffs himself. But it didn't even matter. Once he did that, which I thought was really cool, they had the pretty much demon blocking handcuffs, and Crowley was mad at him, and he like punched him, and then Dean punched him back, and he was like really hurt, and he was like bleeding, and then Dean looked like he was perfectly fine. I thought that was kind of funny actually. But I loved it when they got him. They caught him, they put him in the church, and Sam's about to do the final trial. And then you have the side story, which I think I enjoyed that more because it was like a huge twist, and I it's pretty much what causes, what caused the ending, and what's, caused, um, whatever season 9 is going to end up being like. And that's Metatron being a liar. And, this whole time, after finding out about the angel tablet, I kind of thought, okay, or after finding out about the trials from the angel tablet, I thought, next season would be Cass doing his trials so he could block off heaven. Like they block off, hell, like Sam and Dean would, and then next season would be, them helping Cass block off heaven from Earth. And then it turns out, that's all crap, and Metatron's just screwing with Cass because he was pissed. Well, not even pissed, but he was sad that God left, and he was pissed at the other angels for driving him out of heaven because they were gonna like wipe his mind and probe him or whatever. And once Naomi revealed that he was faking, I thought it was a spell to find God. Like I pretty much think that like every time something happens, I think, oh, they're gonna try to find God because I'm almost 100% sure when the show ends, the last season is gonna be them like getting God or actually finding God and solving whatever problem it is, and then everything's gonna be done. So I thought this is like a spell he knows, like from the angel tablet to find God. God was like, I guess in case of emergency, do this and you can find me. But it was actually to, cast off, cast all angels down to earth and make everyone human. And I really, really enjoyed that plot because he turned Cass human, and the line he says where he's like, go get married and have kids, and when you die and your soul comes to heaven, tell me your story. I thought that was really cool, and I was like, I'm pretty sure my mouth was just open because he turned Cass human. And because I saw the episode like a few weeks ago, I thought of the episode when Dean went to the future, and that was like the future was 2014. And after watching that episode for this season, I thought, that could still happen where Cass becomes human. Like, not the Croatoan part, but, just Cass being human could still happen. It just probably wouldn't happen in the way it did in the episode, which was, like he basically just left heaven. Which I guess it could have still happened that way, because that's kind of what he was trying to do, was close heaven off. And, that it could have actually worked out that way exactly, where he, like, blocked heaven off and stayed on Earth, and he became human, which I thought he was gonna do. But like Metatron, I believe it was Metatron, or I think it was Dean. It was Dean, and he mentioned that he'd have to stay in heaven when he closed it, which I didn't think about. I thought he could just close it, whichever side he was on, he'd be stuck on that side, and I thought he could choose. But in the end, I guess it doesn't really matter at all because it was all fake. And Metatron basically casting everyone, all the angels down to Earth. I feel like he won't be in the next season because he'll just be in heaven, and basically he'll have heaven all to himself. And then the next season is going to be them figuring out how the heck do we get the angels back into heaven and get their wings back, which will probably be on the angel tablet. Because if you think about it now, after finding out Metatron completely lied, we don't know at all what's on the angel tablet. And it might not be like the demon tablet. It could be something totally different because the demon tablet closed the gates of hell. The angel tablet might not close the gates of heaven. It could, like I said, it could be anything now because we actually don't know at all. So it could have any sort of twist. Like it could be how to make someone an angel, or how to make someone an angel again, if that's a thing. It could literally be any of those things, or all of them actually, because it's a two-sided tablet. But like that whole thing was my favorite part of the show, and I thought it was fantastic. But going back to Sam and Dean, once Dean found out that Metatron lied and he went to get Sam, I really love that monologue. When like Dean's basically about to cry, it was like really emotional. And I thought, it's been a long time since I actually saw Dean like that emotional. And excuse me. I don't even really remember the last time I saw both Sam and Dean that emotional like together. And normally when they are, it's like during like the middle of an action scene when someone's about to die. You know, it could be anyone about to die, and it's pretty emotional. But when it's not even an action scene and it's just like, Dean's mentioning like, I know I've said things and I've even said things that sent you on your heels, but you have to know, like basically, you're before anything and everything. And like he said, he's like, I let every one of those freaks, like the demons that killed mom, I'll let them go free if that means I could, have still have my little brother. Sorry, but I thought that was a great scene, and it was like really emotional. And I really loved that scene because, like I said, I hadn't seen them both like that in a long time, and the last couple of times I had was probably in an action scene outside of the last episode when they were um, in the room like looking for the hex bag, but that wasn't really them. It wasn't the same thing. That was like them freaking out and Crowley having like his evil monologue. But this was the brothers. They're talking to each other because Sam was like I don't care if I'm gonna die. I'm gonna stop all demons, and that really made me think that he was gonna die, especially since the episode was called Sacrifice. I thought like it was good. I was like, if he dies, I'm gonna be like super sad. But it didn't do that, and they let Crowley live, so Crowley's still gonna be in the episode or in the show. The brothers there, Cass, and along with Crowley, you have the new demon who's added this season, whose name I wish I could remember, but I can't. And I loved her scene when she came and like she beat up Sam, and Crowley's like super happy. He's like, why send a bunch of grunts when you can send a knight? And she's like tossing Sam all over the place and throws him out the window. And Crowley's like, all right, unshackle me, I'll kill him myself. And then she just beats him up, and he's like freaking out because obviously he could have actually died. He's got shackles on him. He's still in the handcuffs. He's still trapped, dude. Like the demon trap on the ground was really just like the basic step. He still has shackles and handcuffs. He's screwed if she wanted to do anything. And I actually enjoyed it. I didn't think that that's how it was gonna go. I really thought that she was gonna like kill Crowley, or like I pretty much that was all I thought was after the promo where she was talking about a regime change. I really thought they're gonna cure Crowley or kill him, or he's gonna die, and she's gonna take over basically as the queen of hell and pretty much have new reign, and she's gonna do what she wants. But that didn't happen, and Sam came in and he threw like some holy oil on her and torched her. And I actually enjoyed that scene because the CG in that I thought was really good, because they don't really do the CG too much outside of like the decapitations and some of the fire and stuff, like when they set people on fire. But if you remember like the old seasons, they'd have like true like real CG. It would be like just the whole thing would be like a fake person on fire, and then they die and like crumble into pieces, and it would look kind of CG. But I thought that actually looked pretty good, like how they did it. And she's running around on fire, and then the demon, she like smokes out. And I thought, like, the first thing I thought was that's gonna be really bad next season. So I'm curious as to what she's gonna do. She's probably gonna have something, because she's so powerful. She's gonna have something to do with like trying to figure out something from the angels, probably, or something. I don't know. And I don't know. Maybe Crowley will be doing that, and maybe he'll be more on the side of the brothers now, because you never know what's going to happen with the angels now being on Earth. So who knows what type of dynamics that'll throw off, because it won't just be angels are humans now, no big deal. It's going to be like it's like people coming from another planet when you think about it, and them having all that power and knowing what they know about God, and all the religion and all those types of things. Now they're on Earth, and they're humans now. What are they gonna do, and how are they gonna survive and adapt to life? Because odds are, with them having been angels, there's probably some residual sort of thing on them, on everyone who was an angel. And they're probably like every demon on the planet might be after the angels in next season. But whatever she ends up doing, it's gonna be great. And whatever they do with Crowley is definitely gonna be good because he's just an amazing character. And I love the part where he was actually reverting back to um, the guy he possessed, which I kind of forgot. Like, after you see someone for so long, just like Cass, I always forget that that's not his body. He's actually possessing that guy whose name I can't remember because they haven't said it since the last time, Cass wasn't in his body, which are always funny episodes. But like I always forget, like, oh, that's not his body because for everyone else, every other demon is just like, oh, here's a demon for this episode that gets killed and stuff like that. But when it was characters like Ruby and Meg and stuff, I would always kind of forget, like, that's not what they look like. They're demons possessing this person. And I'd always forget that, especially considering they end up having to kill every person that gets possessed, generally speaking. But yeah, like I completely forgot, and he was reverting back. I thought he was, at first I thought he was just like playing around with them because he's like, um, he kind of basically cut the whole British accent, which was probably my favorite part about it because he's like, hey, we just survived this, and that's what you're gonna do. And Sam was like, seriously? And how he said it was just like so just American to me, and it was like no accent at all. And I thought it was fantastic. He's like starting to freak out and stuff. And once again, I saw the episode, the rerun recently about Crowley when they like found his bones, when they had the whole thing where um, if you burn a demon's bones, it does the same thing as it does with a ghost, and they found out it was true. And they mentioned like he sold his soul for like 3 inches below the belt. That's what Bobby said to him. And like when you mentioned like he deserved to be loved, I was like, well, that perfectly connects to that line from that episode. And I just thought he reverted back, and he was talking about all these wars and stuff. So I don't know if that was actually the guy he possessed, because he was talking about like old wars. So I think it was partly the guy he possessed, and also partly Crowley just being like a old demon, and him, like he was freaking out pretty much. And I also thought that was a pretty emotional scene. At first it was funny, but then it got like really serious, and him not doing the accent wasn't as funny anymore because he was like almost crying. Well, actually, he flat out was crying, and that was a really good scene in the part where he asked Sam, like right before Sam did like the final injection, like what, like where do I start? And he had like tears going down his eyes. I thought that was really great too. Like, and I love that scene because I thought this isn't Crowley we see. Like 15 minutes earlier, you know, when the woman comes through the door and she's like, hello boys. He's like, that's my line. That's not the Crowley you see in these two scenes. And I thought it was just excellent. I thought it was fantastic. And also the actor whose name I can't remember, fantastic actor. But like I just really love that scene, and I'm curious as to what they're gonna do, with Crowley next season. Because like I said, they have angels coming down. You know, Sam, not doing the final trial. I really thought he was gonna die anyway, because obviously he's freaking out, and I thought he was gonna have like a heart attack and die. And then they see the angels, he kind of it slowed him down a little, but they have to figure that out. Is the blood inside of Crowley gonna wear off, or is he pretty much like in this dazed state permanently now? Odds are it'll wear off at some point, but like the idea I just had is, what if they just did like crazy injections on him, and they just had purified blood, and they just kept it going like the whole season, and then they pretty much like trick him into being on their side because they kind of mess with his mind and sort of revert him back to the guy he actually possesses. And so they can kind of work with Crowley and use him, and his assets, which would be every demon in all of hell, to solve the angel problem, which I think would be pretty cool. But odds are that's probably not going to happen. He's probably going to escape and still be like the third, like the third piece of the triangle with, you know, Sam, Dean, and Cass, and then the new demon. Because, like I said, you know, once she escaped from the body, you know, that's trouble for next season because she's so powerful. So, you know, she's there. There, you know, the brothers and Cass are there, and then you have Crowley once again, like off to the side, still a main villain, but you know, he's like the overarching villain instead of like that season's villain. He's always there, but he's not the main problem because somebody who just, you know, randomly comes in, seems to have a, you know, who has a ton of power, is a problem for him just as much as it is for Sam, Dean, and Cass. So I'm really excited to see what they do next season because I wasn't expecting that ending at all. And just like with Arrow, it just ends. You know, it was almost the same. You know, like the sort of effects, except it was just raining angels. And at the same time, what I thought was, if you have angels raining from the sky, how does the planet accept that? So I'll leave you with that. Um, Comment, let me know what you thought of this season finales. What do you hope, you know, for the next season, season 2 of Arrow, season 9 of Supernatural? Really excited for that. And let me know what you think, what you thought of the episodes, what you hope. Like favorite parts of the season of the series, which obviously for Arrow, it would just be um, the one season, so it would be the whole series. And I think I mentioned this in my last video when I did the Supernatural thing, but it doesn't matter. Comment, rate, subscribe if you like. Thanks for watching this super long video.